I love your hair.
Thank you. Welcome to today's class. This is the last of our 3-week session in February in the acrylic class. And today we are going to put our tree in a snow scene. So that's what we're going to paint today. And this is a square format. So in preparation for painting this painting, I suggest that you square off your canvas. So if you have a stretch canvas and you prefer to paint it on a rectangular canvas, you can do so. But if you are painting on an acrylic paper, or like I am on a canvas, so you can easily square it off by putting a piece of tape. You can measure it, but you can also just eyeball it. And in this little section here, we're going to do some testing of the grays that we're going to use to paint our painting.
Can I ask a question? Is that size 9 by 12 on the top?
Yes, I have a
Okay.
I have a 9 by 12 canvas. So
Yeah,
all of
that's what I
this
have.
is 9 by 12.
Okay,
And
good.
then I put a tape here, and that
Okay.
makes this section probably
8 by-
somewhere like around 8.5 by 8.5, because
Okay.
9, because it's, there's a little bit of tape that's on top. So, like a square section. And this little section we'll use to test our grays, because we're going to do a lot of grays today.
Okay. So on a block, you told me I don't have to tape, but I will just tape the bottom, right? I have a block. Can I use?
So to prepare your paints, you can, take out a lot of white. We're going to use a lot of white.
Oh, good. I love white.
A little red and some blue. And but I'm not sure we're going to use any yellow. If we use any yellow, it's going to be just a teeny little bit. So you can prepare those. And I suggest that you also pre-mix some purple, because we're going to use some purple. And how do we make purple? We mix the ultramarine blue with the alizarin crimson. Usually a little bit more blue than red, just because the blue is not as strong as the red. All right, so trees in the winter scene. So what I've prepared here is the steps to do our winter scene with a sugar maple tree. And because I'm recording this, I'm gonna mute you guys just so that it's a better sound. And so these are the steps. Excuse me. To come, at the end, we're gonna have this lovely scene here at the bottom right corner. And we could, if we wanted to, do a little drawing. The drawing would look like this, with the house on the right-hand side and the mountains in the back and the little dunes on the front. And this is our tree. And then the first step, we're going to paint from the back to the front. So from the back, we'll first start with painting the sky. Then we'll add the mountains in the back. Then we'll add this, it's like a little road in white. Then we can add our, shape of the house. And then we'll add our tree and the little shrubs in just dark. And then the snowbanks in the front. So that will be our first step. And then the second step here will be to add the snow on the sugar maple tree. And it doesn't really show a whole lot, but if I make it a little bit bigger, and go like this. So if I try to make it a little bit bigger, you can tell how there's a little bit of snow. So in order for our snow to show better, what we're going to do is we're going to make the background mountain a little darker. And so I'll guide you through this. And also I've added the snow on the little shrubs. So this one, and this one. You can't really see very well on here, but anyway, that's what I did. And then the very last step is to do, let's see, I'm having a hard time with this. So the very last step is to clean up our sky and to also add a little snow on the rooftop and a little bit of definition on the rooftop. And that's it. So if I go back to the overall 4, like so. So these are the steps that we're going to do. And I'll walk you through the different steps. Now we'll also be practicing our grays. So how do we make grays? And I put some examples here. So you can start with ultramarine and add a lot of white and you'll get some gray. You can also start with green. The green is made from ultramarine blue and primary yellow, and add a lot of white and you'll get some nice gray. Or you can start with purple and add white and you get some gray. Or in your purple, you can add a tiny bit of yellow and that will almost make it green, and add some white and then you'll have gray. And what I did here on the very last slide, I'll just make it a little bit bigger. So I used that example of the gray that I made starting with ultramarine blue, and it goes all the way to here. And you can see the mountain in the back and the gray that was made with blue and white. They're almost similar. You can hardly see the difference. So that's how I made the gray mountain in the back. And to make the gray of the sky over here, so I started with the purple and I added a lot of white, and then you can tell how the color is very, very similar. So I was trying to show you how to make the gray. It's basically the colors that we know, and we add a lot of white. Or sometimes we add a lot of water in medium. Some people might not like that, using too much water. So is there any questions on this? On this? And so I put here that the drawing is optional. So we can draw it with a pencil, or we could draw with our brush, or we could just go right in and paint instead of drawing. So is there any preference? So I'm going to say we're going to draw first. And if this is what you want, give me a thumb up. So Leslie says yes, and Michelle doesn't say yes, and Pam says yes. So we have 2 to 1. So how about if we draw, but we're going to draw with our brush? Is that a yes? Oh, I see a no for Leslie. What about you, Pam? Is that oh, that's a yes. So how about that, Michelle, if we draw with the brush? And Leslie, you're going to have to follow along. I think that's a good approach. I like when I paint in plein air, or even in my studio, I usually do my drawing with my brush. Using a very light color, ultimately, this drawing will disappear under thicker color that we're going to do. All right, so. So these are the colors that we're going to use. So you're going to use some nice purple, deep purple. I mean, here it's not that deep because I put a lot of water in it. And then the ultramarine blue, the alizarin crimson. So these are the colors that I have on my palette. You're going to need a lot of white to paint this painting. And maybe we'll use a little yellow, but not sure. So let's practice gray, doing a gray. So what I suggest that you have is using this little section here that we have cornered off. If you don't have a section like this on your canvas, if you have a large test strip, that will work just as well. And let's start with using some ultramarine blue. So this is what I suggest you do. using some ultramarine blue. And while it's still wet, clean your brush completely. Get some white and mix this white with your blue. Now, don't mix the whole thing, but get a little bit of blue and mix it with the white. And you'll see that you are getting a beautiful, it's almost like a powdery blue gray, but it is nice gray. So I put my blue first, then I clean my brush completely, then I got some white, and I put it here on the side, and I added a little bit of blue. This is a nice way to add just a teeny little bit of blue instead of a lot of blue. So to have a nice light gray, you need a lot of white and just a teeny little bit of blue. Now we're going to try and make a nice gray with the purple. So I had some nice light color on my brush. I need to completely wash my brush or use a different brush for this. Now with a clean brush, I'm going to use some purple that I pre-mixed. If you haven't made your purple yet, you make it by mixing the ultramarine blue and the alizarin crimson. So in a different spot on my canvas, my test strip, I put some nice purple right here. Now, while it's still wet, I'm going to clean my brush, or you could use a different brush for the wet, I guess. So with a clean brush, I'm grabbing a lot of white. I apply this white next to the purple, and then slowly I go into the purple to bring a little bit of purple into my white, creating a very nice and beautiful gray. So now we've created this other tinge of gray, lighter at the top, a little darker here. And this was done by using the purple. So first I put the purple on my canvas, and then I completely cleaned my brush and I grabbed some white. I applied it next to the purple, and then very slowly I pulled some purple into my white, creating this beautiful gray. We're going to make a gray this time, starting with a green. So now will be the time where we're going to use a little white, a little yellow. So I'm going to make my green first, using some blue. We don't need a whole lot of this. And some yellow. So ultramarine blue, primary yellow. I'm just going to mix these two colors. Gives me a nice deep, dark, deep, like forest green. Cleaning my palette. So the color that I've created, starting with, whoops, gotta use clean brush to do this. So now I'm starting with a nice green. So this is the green that I'm going to start with. And starting with this green, same process. So I put some green on my canvas, pretty dark, clean my brush completely, or use a clean brush. Get a lot of white, put the white next to my green, and then slowly I pull some green into my white to create my gray. So I'm going to get now nice gray that is a greenish gray. So first I put the green onto my canvas, then I clean my brush completely, or I used a different brush, and then I applied a lot of white here and slowly pulled some green into my white. And I got this nice gray.
Excuse me. Okay, thanks.
So
Sorry.
this is a good question. starting with some purple.
Oh, okay, that's where I missed it.
Starting with purple.
Mhm.
And then in this purple, I'm going to add just a teeny bit of my yellow, very little bit. And this color that it gives me, it's almost like a greenish olive color. So just to show you the color that it gives me, I'm going to put some on here. This time I added a little bit more yellow. So it gives me a color like this, almost like brown. It's not, this is my purple, and this is the purple with yellow in it. So using this color, starting with this color, I put it on my canvas. So it's going to be quite dark because this would be the second layer. I put it on my canvas, completely clean my brush, get some white, put it here, and pull a little bit of this color into my white. Now look at this beautiful gray that we're getting. And it could be a darker gray with more. So now I've got this gray here. Look at this beautiful gray that we got with this. So this I started here. First I premixed on my palette. I premixed my purple with a little bit of yellow. Give me this color. So I put this color here, then clean my brush. I added my white here next to this color. And then I pulled some of this new color into my white. So it could be a lighter gray, a darker gray that I create with this. All right, so to do a simple drawing of our scene, I'm simply going to use some powder blue. So I'm going to mix some of my blue with some white, make it very watery so that, you know, eventually it will all disappear under the new layers of colors. But first we're going to indicate the mountain. The mountain, we're going to make it quite high, almost to the top. And it's just a mountain like this. So this is our first mountain. And there's a lower one right here. And then one that goes a little bit more abrupt on that side. So this is the drawing of our mountains. And then I'm going to proceed. Then I'll give you a few minutes to catch up if you are behind. So then I'm going to do the bottom of the mountains, and the bottom of the mountains will be like maybe 1/3 up, like about here. Make sure you don't make this in the middle, and it's a little oblique, so it's going to be about like this. Goes that way. Now we have our house here on the right hand side. So the house, the bottom of the house is something like this. And then the side of the house. So the middle of my painting is about here. This is the middle of my painting. And if I go in between the middle of the canvas and the side of the canvas over here, this is where I'm going to put the side of my house. It's approximate, doesn't have to be completely precise. And then I'm going to just put the roof this way. So now I have my house here. This one's a little smaller than that one. That's okay. So then we have the side of the house like this. That will then come down a little bit. And then there's another snowbank like this. And the only other thing that we need to add is our tree. So our tree is going to, actually, you know what? This is supposed to be like this anyway. The tree should be, try not to put the tree right in the middle. So we said the middle is right here. So 1/4, like in between the middle and this side of the canvas could be where we put the tree. So the tree would be about like this. And I'm not going to make it higher than the mountain. And then my tree will be like this. Like so. So now I have my tree. That's it. That's a drawing. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to finish your drawing. So I'm going to use a teeny little bit of purple. You can do it with your brush or with your palette knife. Teeny little bit of purple and a lot of white. And I'm going to mix these two colors to make a nice light gray from the purple. Now this color is very, very light. So if I show it to you on my paint, my strip. So the color that I came up with is very, very, very light. See this gray right here? Very, very light. That's the color I'm going to use to paint my sky. This color. So now I'm going to direct the camera towards my painting and use this color. So I made this color by mixing a teeny bit of purple and a lot of white. And it almost looks like I'm painting white, but it's a nice purplish gray that I'm using. Because it's an overcast day. And so I'm covering the whole sky with a lot of paint, making sure that I go all the way to the lines, because ultimately you want to cover these lines. All right. So I painted my gray sky. It's almost white, but it's a gray made with a little purple. So to make the blue, to paint the mountain, I'm going to use a little bit of blue, my ultramarine blue here, and then a lot of my white, but I want to have a good blue color for that far away snow. So I have this color. I think I want it to be a little darker, so I'm going to use a little bit more blue. Even more than that. So you want to have a blue that is dark enough so that when we're going to paint our tree that has snow on it, it will show. That's why we want to make it dark enough. So I don't have enough, but this is the blue that I want. So if I put a little example of this blue on my testing strip, next to the gray, you can tell that it's a few tones darker. See how this nice blue color for the mountain compared to my gray for the sky is darker, and that's what we want. If your blue, powder blue for the mountain is too light, it's not going to work. So it's got to be a good contrast with your sky. All right, now I'm going to paint my mountains using this color, starting with the one that is the farthest away. So I load up my paint with this color, and I'm going to start with this mountain here. And if you happen to go over like this, that's okay, because now you're going to add one more mountain. This one will be like this. Now, as you come down here, you can add a little white on your brush to do a contrast between the two mountains. Just a teeny little bit like this. In this way, we can see that it's two different mountains. Makes it interesting. And then you're going back to my blue again. I'm going to put my biggest mountain up here. And I'm actually going to paint over my tree. So I'm making my blue mountain. So if I run out of paint, I have to make more. So I'm going to just make more. And because I mean, you can use your palette knife again to make more. I'm just going to quickly make more like this on the fly. And then put this like this. That's the size of my mountain. I'm adding more white on my brush to indicate that this mountain ends like this, just on the side, wet on wet. And then I'm going to continue painting this mountain, the whole thing, with the same color. You could vary if you'd like, but I'm just trying to make it simple. But if you want to vary, you could make it lighter or darker. Lighter would be a good idea. So I'm covering my tree, but we'll find it again eventually. So this is my faraway mountain. And these are my mountains. So see how with just a little white, I was able to indicate that the mountains end like this. Make sure you go all the way to the house. See here, I realized I didn't go all the way to the house, so I better cover this because I don't want to have a white spot in between. So I'm going to add that. Oops, sorry. With the same color again over here, like so. If you went over the roof like this, that's okay. When we paint the roof, we'll straighten it out. Oh, voila. Okay. The next step is we're going to paint this path that's behind the tree. So this one here. To paint this, you can use just the white, or you can put just a teeny little bit of red in your white. And so I'm going to put a teeny little bit of red in my white. So starting with a teeny bit of red, very small amount. Then a lot of white. I'm going to make this, it's almost like a pink, but oh, so I want it to be so light in color. So, and try to make sure that you make enough. We're going to paint that road. So if I put it next to the other colors that I have created before, using a clean brush, one is getting dirty. I'm going to use a clean brush, a brand new brush. Okay. So using this, so I'm going to put it here next to the others. And so it's very close to what we have in the sky. I put it here. But you can tell there is a little bit of a difference in between what I had in the sky, because the sky was created with purple and white. This is created with just a teeny little bit of white, a teeny little bit of red and white. So if I put it on my white of the paper, I'm not sure you can see on the camera, but there's a little bit of a difference. So I'm going to use this color now to paint this road. If I turn my camera to my road, so my road is right here. This is my road. And it goes behind the tree. So now we're losing completely the tree, but that's okay. We'll repaint it. This is where my road is. Make sure that you leave no white space between your mountain and your road. And you want to make sure also that you go all the way down to the snowbanks at the bottom. Kind of losing those shapes, but that's okay. And then this is where the side of the house is. I'm going to go like this. And if you still have some of that powder blue or the blue color that you had made for the mountain, you could, if you want, smoothen the bottom of the mountain with that road by adding a little bit of that down here. So now I'm trying to remake because I ran out. But let's say I go here at the bottom where I mix the two just to make it a smoother edge. Let's go like this. And even if it's not the exact same blue, that's okay because the snow is rarely the exact same color. So there, that gave me this this smooth edge that I was looking for. And if I go too light, I can always add some more. There.
Claire, my color is really reddish. Should I keep adding more white?
Well, if it's very, very reddish, you probably need to take a little bit of that, put it aside, and add white to that portion.
Okay.
Because
All right,
otherwise, if you use the whole thing, it's going to take you too much.
Okay.
Too much white. So I painted the side, this road here, but I also want to paint the snowbanks that are below the road. And to paint these snowbanks, what you can do is, as you can see here, these snowbanks are a very light blue. So you could use some of your blue color from your mountain, add a little white to it, and paint those. You could use a little bit of your purple, add a little white to it, and paint it with those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this blue color that I have painted my mountains with. I'm going to add just a little white to it, and that's what I'm going to use. And as you paint these, you can add more white or less white and create some movement. So let's see. So I'm creating this lighter version of my mountain. And I'm just giving it a little movement like this. And now I'm going to use some of my color that I did the street with and put some over here and mix it with some of my powder blue. Makes it interesting. put too much. And then I'm using some of this mix over here as well. And going back to the powder blue to create this snowbank here. So snowbanks are something that, you know, can be fun to do, and they're forgiving. So I've painted the snowbank that is right here in front of, you know, below this street. The next step will be to add our house. I think this may be a little too dark, so I might add a little bit of this lighter version of the same blue. Maybe a little bit to lighten it a little bit. Yeah, running out of white. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and then we'll paint the house with the alizarin crimson. We're actually put a little bit of blue in the alizarin crimson to make it a magenta color. So showing my palette here, I'm using some of my nice alizarin crimson and to this, I have little crumbs. To this alizarin crimson, I'm gonna add a little bit of ultramarine blue. Give me a nice magenta color. So a little bit more, whoops, of the blue. Running out. We don't need a whole lot of this color because the part of the house that we see is small. So the colors that I've made is a nice magenta. I'll show you here. Oops. Lint. So I've created this nice magenta color, as you can see in the test strip. And that's the color that we're going to use to paint the house. Now the house is over here. And it's got a slanted roof. I'm making it a little bit more magenta than on my example. So my first layer of the house will be just one flat color. And because the house is behind the snowbank, we'll probably have to repaint the snowbank in front of it because otherwise it's going to look weird. So this is my first layer of the house. Now, the roof comes forward like this. We have to make sure that we add this little part here. So I'm going to add that to my house. Like so. Just going to prolong this roof. Right here like this. One thing that's very important is that this roof be completely straight this way. If it's not straight, it's not gonna read correctly. So make sure it's straight. And this is just our first layer. So it looks a little, may look a little funny in color. But this is our house. So the roof has got to be straight like this. I mean, I know it's oblique, but it's got to be a straight line. This line here has got to be completely horizontal, I mean vertical. And this can be just a little thing of the roof that comes back. Now, this snowbank is in front of this house. So I'm gonna put another layer of my snowbank that comes like this, just to show that it's in front. And the color that I use for that is the same color that I used there. So in my case, I used some powder blue. That's the color I'm going to put there. Like this. And I'm just going to go like this. And then we paint the house again and again and again. I might change this, but anyway. So this is my house. So I'm going to use a flat brush to do this. The same that I used to paint the house. And I'm going to use the purple color made from dark ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. And I'm going to paint my tree. Now, to paint the tree, you can paint it upside down if that's good for you. Now, we're going to paint on top of the mountain. Now, if there's anything that you want to change once you've painted the tree, you can always do so by quickly erasing a branch. So anyway, so my tree, I had originally put the tree right here. I want to move it a little bit to the right. So even though I can still see a little bit of my tree trunk, I can still see a little bit of my tree trunk here. I'm going to move my tree trunk over here. And then eventually I'll paint this pathway again on top, and this won't show anymore. So if you want to move your tree at this time, that's you have a chance here. So I'm going to go like this and put my tree with my nice deep purple. And that's where it's going to go. So don't make the tree trunk too wide. I think I've already made it a little too wide, but anyway. And using a little bit more water in that purple might give you a chance to do this a little bit more smoothly. There's always a chance to go back on top. All right, so maybe I'm going to plant my tree a little lower, like so. Okay, so now I've put my tree there. I think it looks like it belongs there, but I find that I've made this a little too wide. So the way that I do this is I take a clean brush and I'm going to make this a little skinnier. I dip it in the water, I dry it on my paper towel, and I just tease this on the side there like this. So that allows me to trim this tree that I find a little too thick here at the top. And then I clean my brush again, and I can do a little bit more if I want to. And this will completely remove what was done that I didn't like. So now I have a tree that's, the tree trunk's pretty much the shape that I wanted. So I'm going to do this here on this side again. So there, that's pretty good. So this can be done immediately after you've painted it, even if it's already dry. But if you wait too long, it's not going to be able, you're not going to be able to do this. If you've made, made it too wide, like I have, now's the time to trim it a little bit. There. So now my tree is pretty much the size that I wanted. And I'm going to add the branches using my flat brush. I like this flat brush to do this. I make a very watery purple, like so. So I'm over here and I'm making my purple as watery as I can. Still want to have enough pigment in there. And, to do this, weirdly, I have to clean my brush first and then dip it back into my paint. And I'm going to do my branches. Remember the branches, they point up and up and up. Oops. Better if I show you. The branches, they point up. And here at the top, they get very thin. So indicating, where the edge is. It's a good idea. And so I go on the other side with the large branches first. These branches, they all point up towards the top. So this is the first step for my tree. And now we're going to add some of these. We're going to add some of these branches with purple, but not all. We're also going to add some of these branches with our white. That's why it was important to do a background mountain that was dark enough. So, which is not what I did here, but this one we're doing differently. So I'm going to add more of these branches, the purple ones. Because it's so wet, it's easier to make them thinner. But from time to time, I have to dip. And of course, you have to, that's when knowledge of your material counts a lot. If you know which brush you can do thin branches with, then it makes your life easier than if you don't know. It may take a while before you realize which brush will work for you to do these things. I mean, it took me forever. All right, so now I've added quite a few branches, and it makes it quite an interesting tree already. But now I'm going to switch to white. So using a different brush, it's a similar brush, but this time I'm just going to do the white with. So I take this brush, I wet it, and I create a watery white with this brush over here. Just white, plain white. That's what I'm using. You want to use enough pigment. But it's got to be watery. So before I start, clean my brush. And now I'm going to put some white branches That will give me, so some of the white could be on top of another branch, but it could be a new branch altogether that you're gonna paint. I'm noticing this brush does not allow me to do as skinny and thin as the other one. Oh yeah, it's working now. So, oops, you should have told me. So this is what's happening when now these white branches now it's creating an interesting effect of some white and some darks. And I can do darker white branches, and the white can only be as white as it is now. So, but this is quite, it's becoming very interesting. So now this is not the right position for me to do this. You can also do this upside down. So sometimes I like to paint upside down, gives me more of a support. And some of the branches, maybe they're not dark enough, so I can, you know, maybe the white is too thin, so I can go again. So now that I'm adding the whites, I'm realizing I don't have enough of the dark branches, so I'm going to go back with my purple and create some more of the dark purple branches. It gives us an interesting tree. It looks like this online. A little bit of white, a little bit of purple, and very interesting tree. So today you may not have time. Now that we have painted this tree, we also need to put the little shrubs here. These are little bushes that are next to the house. And these bushes are made by first painting the branches that are, you know, under the snow first. So this one is kind of like on the side of the house. And so I'm going to put these branches here. You've got to have a nice deep purple to do this, to put these branches in. If it's not deep enough, it's not going to work. So there, that's one. And then a small little mini one here. It's kind of an interesting one. So you have to let these branches dry before you put the snow on top. And this one's more like a little mini bush, basically. So it goes, the branches go from all sorts of directions. They grow from all sorts of different directions. I'm just going to put it like this. And putting the branches before putting the snow is good practice, even though the snow might cover all these branches, because it may not, oops, this one's a little too long. Or maybe I'll make it longer. Oops. Because what's going to happen is as you paint the snow on top, some of the darks will show through. And that's what happens in the snow, basically. Some of the darks, they show through. And but I put one here at the bottom that's a little too long. All right, so now that I've done this, I'm just going to do this one a little darker again. Okay. While this is drying, I'm just going to make my tree trunk a little darker by doing another layer on top. There. Oops. Okay, it went outside the line, so I'm going to correct it with this correction method I showed you right here. There we go. Actually, I'm going to use this. This will be better. Okay. So now, while this is drying, I'm going to put I'm going to put the snow on the roof. And before I put the snow on the roof, there's actually a line, a dark line between the red of the house and the snow on the roof. So I'm going to use my nice purple and put one dark line there. That's over here. Well, this brush was not the right brush to do this. So I'm going to try again this time with this brush. Yeah, this is better. But the important thing is that it's straight against the red roof. This line. And after I've done that, I'm going to clean my brush and straighten the other side like so. While it's still wet. So when you do this, you got to make sure that your mountains behind it are not wet because they will lift. All right, and they still lift a little bit. Anyway. In here, I want to make sure this is right. Now, I've added a dark line on my roof here, and on top of this, there is snow. So I'm going to use white snow. And in this snow, I just take the white paint and put that on top. So I'm going to paint it upside down. It's just easier. Against this dark line. Voila. Now this snow that's on the top has got to be somewhat straight, so I'm just going to straighten it out like this. There. And so now I have the snow on the roof. Like this. It looks a little funny, but it looks a little funny here, but that's the tape. That's where I have to tape. So just to make it look better. So now I have my snow on the roof. I have my house, and these little bushes are dried up. The paint is dried up, and so therefore I'm going to add the snow on these little bushes here and here. And to add this snow on top, I'm going to need two different snow color. So I'm going to mix it up here. First, I'm going to use a little bit of my purple that I'm going to put here and mix this with some white. This is going to give me some purple snow color. I think I don't have enough purple pre-made. Oh, this might be better. Yeah. So I want to have some of this purple color, and I'm going to use the white paint right off the paint that I have here. So this one is, so let's see, I'm going to show on this side. So I have this color and I have the white that's out of the two. So I'm going to use these two to paint these little bushes here. These ones. And to do this, starting with a clean brush, so you can use any brush that you like. I'm going to use my filbert because I like, when I paint these bushes here, I like it when they're not precise. So that's why I like this brush. It's old and it's easy to scumble with it. So I dip it into a lot of paint. I use a lot of paint to do this, as you can see. And I'm going to put it on just to cover the top of my bush, like so. And I'm going to do the same thing with all three. So this one's like here, like this. Little one. Now remember, this bush, in my case, I think it's in front of the house, so I'm going to make sure it's not appearing on top. And there's another one here that will really pop because it's in front of the house. So now I've put this. I'm going to clean my brush a little bit, but I'm going to dip right into my purple that I made. This color right here that I showed you. So I'm using this to put the under the paint. This is like the part that is in the shadow of the bushes. This one here. And this one here. So now I've got a mix, and now I've realized that I have pretty much covered all of the purple branches, so I'm going to add more purple branches. And I ran out of purple, so oh, come on. Such a big container. When it's at the end, it's hard to get some paint. Okay. I almost tipped over my water. Not good. All right. So now I'm going to use more of purple, my purple color. It ran out, so I'm just making more. And this purple color, to do, I'm going to repaint these little the branches of these little bushes. And remember, this purple has got to be a little watery, but not too much. So that's what I'm making here. And before I start, clean my brush, pick it up, and I'm going to add more of these branches. Nice. And now I'm painting wet on wet, so that's what's happening. They're mixing these colors. I like that. And as I'm mixing it, I'm picking up some of the white, so that's why I had to clean my brush a little bit more. But I like the effect. This one is this small little one here. And this one completely lost. It completely lost its mind. Okay. Lost the darks. So I'm adding it back. It will always be possible to add more white if I add too much dark. This one looks funny, too symmetrical. and some of the darks sometimes show through. So I'll just go like this a little bit here and there. All right, so now we have the three bushes, and we have light on them. We have shapes. Now this house, I can see I did not do the second layer, so I'm just going to do a second layer on it. And the house is a nice magenta color. I still have some on my palette, so I'm going to use it. It's got crumbs in it. Not so good. All right, here it goes. So this is my nice house. And trying to stay with the same shape that I originally had. And I'm trying to go around this bush, but basically if I go on top of the bush, I could always repaint the bush again. There. Yeah, so that's my house. So now we have a pretty interesting scene with this. Oh, one thing I didn't do is I didn't put on top of this to hide my original tree drawing. So that's what I'm going to do now. And this pathway was done by mixing just a teeny little bit of red and a lot of white, because it was a very light pink, very light pink. So I don't want to make it too pink. So mixing here just a little bit of my red with white, and I'm hoping that it's not too pink. That's the same color that I originally put. I think it will need even more white. So I'm going to use this to cover this area here, my pathway. So this way it won't show anymore. Now here I find over here that my sky still show the original drawing that I see. I still have the line for the original drawing, so I should do another coat on my sky. What is the color, the initial color of the sky? It was a little bit of purple and a lot of white. So in this nice color that I just made here, the pink, I'm gonna add a little blue, but you could make from scratch nice sky color by first mixing your purple, then adding a little bit of a lot of white to it actually. So I'm gonna repaint my sky just to cover those lines. And I have the wrong brush with this. This brush is too small. Should use a bigger brush. Ah, this one will work. So this one will be better. There we go. So now I find that this is a little too pink. Adding a little blue. So as I'm doing this, now I'm messing up the edge of these mountains. So maybe I would have to repaint those mountains, but I can always do a little cleanup with the brush like I showed you in this class. So it's good to have a second layer. There we go. And now I'm going to do a little cleanup of all of this. Using this brush. So I'm simply gonna go here, and because I went over a little bit, so I'm just gonna go like this, just to clean it up a little bit. Even if there is a little bit of the other color, like if it's not a clean edge, it's okay because it's a mountain top with snow. So it's never super precise. So that's how I do this. So that gives us our scene for today. Ta-da!